bro.
I'm just happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Are you doing okay?
I'm doing great.
What's happening?
We've started.
We are rolling.
Right.
I thought it would be cool to kind of talk about the state of the union of podcasting.
Yeah.
It had a humble history. I had a sense when I started it that it would grow into something bigger and more meaningful than it was at the inception, like back in 2012 when I began, which was early. Not that I wasn't one of the first, but I was pretty early. And what it's like now, which is it's essentially become almost mainstream media. Like all these people
it's
are
going that way.
Basically all running their own public access television show,
right?
And working very diligently to garner people's attention. From my own experience, what's happened is that in many ways, podcasting has become almost an adjunct of the publishing industry. Publishers realized pretty early that the way to sell books is to book their authors on prominent podcasts. And I've participated in that economy for our mutual benefit, I would say. And it's been great because it gives me access to interesting people because they're making themselves available to promote their wares, their goods, their latest book, their latest offering. But it's kind of gotten to the point now where it's harder and harder to create something that stands out and that's unique. And individuals who are good guests learn quickly that they are good guests and start making themselves available for lots of podcasts. You know what I mean? So when the prominent individual, be it an author or whoever, is like, okay, I need to get out in the world and promote something, they are going to, book themselves on all of the podcasts that are similar to mine. So you enter into this equation or this agreement where you know that you're going to get access to this person, but you also know they're going to go across the street and do the other guys and the other guys and the other guys. And by the time you publish this person is going to appear essentially simultaneously on all these shows. And what happens over time is that all of these shows start to look similar and bleed together.
Right.
And when you layer on top of that, the incentives that are now in place in podcasting, it creates a very interesting situation where in order to stand out in what is now a very crowded marketplace, you need to learn about things like algorithms and analytics and what, gets people to not only pay attention, but to sustain that attention. And that has costs and benefits. Like if you do it right, you can benefit by growing an audience and maintaining a large audience. The cost, of course, comes at kind of the whole raison d'etre of the entire affair. Like when you start to book guests based upon what you think is going to grow your audience or what's going to, constitute rage bait or, incite people or is going to lend itself to creating a bunch of clips that have the potential to go viral. To me, on some level, you're sort of losing the plot of the whole affair. And I've been thinking a lot about this and the ways in which it's impacted me and this show and how I want to kind of move forward in the context of this environment that's now very different from the one in which I started. And I think while everyone's out kind of chasing trends, oh, this works, or we need this kind of intro and that hooks people, and here's your title and your thumbnail and all that kind of stuff, in this world that is increasingly video first as opposed to audio first, which is the way that we started, rather than chasing trends, where's the white space? What are people not doing or underappreciating in this whole thing? And for me, much of it goes back to the very beginning, which is the whole appeal of this is that you're crafting, curating, and cultivating something real, something honest, and something authentic that is appealing because it's not in a rush and it's not trying to manipulate you or game your attention. And so that is why I've been doing these longer intros in the audio version of the podcast where I can share my thoughts and take my time. I'm not interested in whether you're going to, click away 5 seconds later. Like that's up to you because I'm going to do what I'm going to do. In the context of this, when everybody is so focused on growth and audience capture and attention farming, the real differentiator isn't the size of your audience, but more the depth of your audience. Like, how real is that audience? How loyal are they? And how well do they feel like you're nourishing them? And the differentiator, in my opinion, is going to be that community piece. Do they feel like they're being nourished? And how can you, rather than being focused on growth, like how can you really serve the people that are already there, who are taking time out of their day to pay attention to what you're doing? And I think the answer to that is by emphasizing and investing in ways to bring them in even more, which is why, we have this new studio and we have this theater. We're going to be doing live events and live podcasts and creating more immersive experiences. And it's why this Substack idea, leveraging it to bring the community in and try to create some kind of community-based enterprise around it, I think is so vital and important and exciting.
The broadcast universe is like, that's the tectonic plates that are shifting the most. And we feel it here in Los Angeles, where there's less work for longtime crew and up-and-comers who want to start as PAs and get into production. There's just so much less work in Los Angeles, partly because of that production work. But then also it's just that the nature of the economy that is broadcasting and filmmaking in general is shifting. And, we come out here to this amazing studio that you guys built. I didn't realize it at the time, like when you were putting this together. I've only learned it over the last year or so, but there are, you are one of several now that have popped up, kind of indie podcasters that have grown and grown, and you have a footprint here that is a real part of the broadcast future. And we think of you, I think of Mel Robbins, Steve Rinella. Obviously, Joe Rogan was the first with his studio in Woodland Hills and now in Austin. But you have kind of a small footprint in relation to the others, but actually a growing one. It's really interesting to see how that system is changing. Yeah,
we're definitely in this flux state of transition in terms of the media landscape, writ large and small. We have the Colbert Show getting canceled,
right.
That's a whole, sticky wicket, why that's happening. At the same time that YouTube creators like Rhett and Link from Mythical Mornings, those guys are coming in later this week to do the show. I'm excited about that. And a handful of others are being submitted on behalf of YouTube for Emmy consideration. So the lines are getting blurred between what is traditional or mainstream media and what is alternative or online digital media. Essentially, everything's on a screen, and we're in this position now where it doesn't really matter if you call it television or you call it YouTube. Like these things are all just buttons on a screen that we choose. And whether it's being broadcast by, one of the big four 3-lettered networks through an antenna and satellites, or it's coming through an Ethernet or your Wi-Fi into your office on a smaller screen, really doesn't matter anymore. All of these things are being put in the Vitamix and they're being blended together, and we haven't really emerged yet from that with any clarity. Like right now, it's all confusing, but it is true. Like here we are in Los Angeles, the global capital of content creation for as long as any of us have been alive, and people who have had long careers in this industry can't find work, or at least can't find work that pays a habitable living wage.
Oscar nominees
and
are driving Uber.
These people move from working on television shows or movies into the digital space,
right,
looking for jobs at places like this, which I think is incredibly fascinating.
It's so fascinating.
And I feel so lucky to even have a foothold in all of this. I mean, we're a small operation in comparison to, what many others are doing out there. And it's really special. And I'm so grateful to be able to do this thing and to kind of grow it, and now to start to work with other creators and kind of expand what we're capable of doing, which I think is really exciting. But I think it's important to hold on to like why it is that you're doing it in the first place. Mm-hmm. Because with all of the incentives, like I was mentioning earlier, that are out there, it's very easy to lose sight of the why. And I've borne witness to people who are doing that. And when you get to a certain size and scale and you're staffed up with all kinds of people who know how the internet works, I've seen people kind of, move into this place where their perspective on what they're creating and sharing is really entirely through the lens of like, what's going to go viral, what's going to be, the thing that is going to travel across the internet the most fluidly. And as a consequence of that, the programming starts to get reverse engineered rather than it being what perhaps it was at the outset, like this more authentic, original, kind of organic exchange between people, has now become kind of completely predetermined in advance. And I think that comes at a certain cost. It certainly works. There are people out there who have become very successful doing this, and I don't begrudge them. They're doing what they're doing. But I just think for me, and also as somebody who's been doing it for a very long time and wants to continue to be able to keep doing it and be in love with it in the same way that I always have been, like I always want to come back to the why. Like, and the why is like, I want to serve the audience in a meaningful way. I want to create something that will have the potential to be impactful, not on a surface level, but really on as profound a level as I'm capable of doing. And in order to do that, I have to step outside all of the gamesmanship that I think is going on right now, and just lean into my strengths and try to double down on them and allow it to be what it wants to be rather than trying to force it to be something else, because this is what other people are doing that's working really well.
It's interesting. It's like what we were talking about before you went into that was the shift in the flux. And like you said, people from professional broadcasting careers coming over to YouTube. Well, what you just described as gamesmanship, or as like planning on the questions and having, what you're going to get back from the guest. I mean, that's late night talk show. That's talk show stuff.
Right.
That's Donahue's cards.
It's basically going back to,
right.
Yeah, it's like, all of these things are moving in bi-directional.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like the talk shows have to become more like podcasts, and the podcasts are becoming more and more like the late night talk shows and the morning shows, where
right.
It's like, here's my card with the question on it. And this question has been vetted, based upon A/B testing to solicit the answer that is going to be the most popular with our audience, and it's right. Like, okay, well, right, now we're doing television. Now
you're doing television. Yeah. And what you're talking about is I got to stay true to my rudder and just keep going and stay indie and stay indie, but also stay indie in your own mind and how. And
it's probably like a Gen X thing, It's like the Gen X like don't sell out while you're selling out, or like or you're guilty about it or something like that, Yeah, I mean, you're wearing a Kurt Cobain T-shirt, right? This is like this is like very Gen X.
I am wearing the shirt, but I did find out, I read somewhere that like when the money started rolling in, Kurt somehow negotiated 75% of the royalties for himself. So,
of course. Yeah.
And he probably deserved them.
But it doesn't mean there wasn't a part of him that was like, like the guilt of selling out. It's totally. Like there's this sensibility for people of our age, like the way that we were raised in this sort of fuck you punk rock, like it's not cool to care.
Right.
And, everything is sort of, it's sort of like this veneer of nihilism over everything.
Right.
Where the worst thing you could do was sell out. And now we're in a culture where like selling out is the point. Like this is the thing that everyone is celebrating. Right. And like, look, this is a commercial enterprise. Like I want it to be successful, and I'm glad that it is, and I'm very proud of it. And I get to employ all these people and do all this cool stuff. So I'm not necessarily hung up on that, only when it comes at the erosion of the value system that gave birth to it.
Well, I think your intentionality comes through also. And like I was telling you before we got on here that like, I called you a tastemaker. You called yourself a mindful curator and like someone people depend on for not just like we call tastemaker. Usually it means what you eat or what you consume media wise, but you're introducing concepts and experts, as well as when we talk about like things to watch and books to read and things like that. So you're bringing that, and that intentionality kind of comes through, I think, because you're the way you started, which was your kind of three niches, the plant-based, the sober living, and the endurance sports. So those three niches crossed over, and you're able to kind of introduce them to each other. And now you're continuing to do that. That's growing. So that intentionality comes through. And the other thing I think of in that regard is, even though guests rotate between shows, and from a host perspective, it's got to like make you a little nuts. But from a user perspective, like how many websites do we actually visit on a daily basis? Like if you really monitored, some people really range across the web. I would venture to guess most people don't. Most people have their favorite sites and they have their favorite shows. And yes, though, you've had this person on and so-and-so's had the same guest on, and you can name 10 people that have had that guest on. Probably a good chunk of your audience has only consumed that guest on your show. So there's something about that too, because in the siloization of media, which is what we're talking about, and this is one silo, you've actually become a silo. So you're kind of the filter through which some of this stuff gets in. One channel. Yeah,
I mean, I think there's some truth in that. I think what I was getting at was more that, and this is a little inside baseball, or like, how the sausage is made. But essentially, when you get to the point that, that where we're at, it becomes very easy to program the show reactively, right, because you get so many pitches, like every day, like 20 to 30 incoming emails with so-and-so in their book or whatever. There's, I'm on publicist lists, and I get the galleys for all the self-improvement books and all of that. So it's really like, I can just pick and choose what appeals to me and just say yes to this and no to this, and booking the show, because I'm the only one who books. I know other people have like bookers. People might not realize that, but they hire bookers to like get people to come on the show. Like, I'm the only one who books. I'm the only one who is, reaching out to guests and making lists of people that I want to have, et cetera. But I will admit to have gone through periods where it's just like, it just becomes easy to do that. And you don't really think about it. And I've sort of woken up from that phase to realize in this space where, yes, there are these respective silos and maybe there's some, kind of cross-pollinization there, but maybe not also, because people have their favorite hosts and they want to hear their host talk to this person, et cetera. At the same time, I think there's a lot to be said for really being proactive rather than reactive, and thinking hard and long about the people you really want to have and going after them intentionally. And so I'm trying to do more and more of that, to step outside the ecosystem where you're just picking and choosing among the people that are doing the rounds, to find the hidden gems and the amazing people who maybe have never done a podcast, or maybe only did that tiny one, but it was amazing and you saw it or heard it and thought like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to, broaden their reach and amplify their voice by having them on? And so that's kind of like where my head is at in terms of that. And I think the only way to distinguish yourself, if your audience is cross-pollinated with a bunch of other people, is to, venture outside the lines a little bit and, make your stamp by doing something a little bit different, rather than going along to get along and just following, whatever happens to be the trend at the moment.
I like it, man. I'm not in demand by the other podcasts, so that's why I'm a good guest for you right now. I'm very much not in demand.
I've tried my best, Adam, to like position you as an in-demand guest for other podcasts, but there's only so much I can do.
There's only one podcast that needs me.
It's up to you at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta maybe I should have A/B tested a bunch of questions for you and then thrown them at you, and we could rehearse before the podcast, so that by the time you're behind the mic, you could just lay down some truth or some monologue, and we'll clip that. We'll put it up there. It'll go crazy.
I get a minute.
And then all those podcasters are going to be calling you.
I get invited. I say no. It's like I say no a lot. I get invited to smaller podcasts sometimes. There's a time and place. There's a time and place. Maybe that day is coming.
After hosting more than 900 episodes of this podcast, I have noticed a pattern. And that pattern is that the highest performers don't buy into the latest trendy hacks. Instead, they obsess on what actually works, which is always the unassuming basics. And there is nothing more basic than hydration, right? But here's the kicker. Your body can't hold on to water without the right minerals. Without them, water is just like this temporary visitor. But Element has cracked the code on this, which is why I've been using it religiously for years. Zero sugar, no artificial junk, just sodium, potassium, and magnesium in the ratios that actually work. Their new sample pack features their most popular flavors: citrus salt, raspberry salt, watermelon salt, that's my favorite, and orange salt. 8 stick packs total, perfect for finding your favorite or sharing with a friend. Get a free 8-count sample pack of Element's most popular drink mix flavors with any purchase at drinklmnt.com/richroll. Find your favorite Element flavor or share it with a friend.
There's this persistent myth that creatine is just for bodybuilders and gym bros, and I kind of get it. The marketing has been terrible for decades. But what the science shows is that creatine is actually this fundamental cellular fuel. Your brain uses it, your heart uses it. Every energy-demanding process in your body relies on it. And this connects to everything I explore on the show: cognitive well-being, physical performance, recovery, longevity. It's about improving how your cells generate energy at the most fundamental level. Momentous understands this, and their new lemon travel packs make it simple. I've got them right here. They're all naturally flavored, of course, perfectly portioned with grab-and-go convenience. But the real differentiator is Momentous's creatine itself. It's pharmaceutical grade, not the bulk powder of questionable origin that floods the market. Theirs comes from Germany, and it's called CreaPure. So if you have been curious about creatine, but just kind of put off by the bro science marketing, this is your entry point. Use code RICHROLL at livemomentous.com/richroll for up to 35% off your first order.
I think the most popular podcast that we've done in the last handful of months was with Craig Maude.
Yes, love that one.
And that's also like the longest and the kind of conversation that lends itself the least to the viral clip. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to be in for the entire experience with this guy. And if you go all in, you will be nourished and rewarded, and you will emerge like better than you were before.
Yeah.
That was an incredible one. And I love the fact that it was also popular, because sometimes, those really deep and heartfelt explorations don't necessarily translate into, views and listens on the internet, because people are busy or because whatever, for a million different reasons. But to see that is like, oh yeah, that's right. This is what we do here. You know what I mean? More of that, please.
Yeah. I love that one. Go for a long walk with Craig Maude.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's so funny because when that one starts, it's like, here's this really cool, nice guy who has these great insights. But then as the podcast goes on, you realize he's like this incredible polymath that's great at a million things. Yeah. Like great musician.
I can create my own social media platform that is exactly like Twitter, because I can code, but I can also write better than everyone else and create these art books, and I can walk for days and do
exactly. Like by the end I was like, man, this guy's not an underdog, this guy's one of the greats.
I never said he was an underdog.
No.
I think he's sort of a quietly under the radar, like superhero type figure. So
big fan.
I think we said what we needed to say.
Yeah.
I feel good about the place that we're in right now. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to be able to expand our offerings and reach our tentacles deeper into you guys, the community, to reward you for your attention and to hopefully strengthen our ability to not only feel connected to you and you to us, but to serve you better in a more immersive way. So there's a lot in development right now as far as that goes.
And I'm psyched to be a part of it, partly because in this new, like, in a way, you didn't even mean to be doing this when you asked me to come on and start doing Roll On as the pandemic hit. But like, when the New York Times shut down their sports section, like a lot of stuff's been shut down. Outside fired. I mean, they're coming back and they're doing well, but they did fire everybody I worked for over there.
Everybody got fired. Right. Everyone at Outside Magazine got fired. Like this is happening, across the board in publishing, in television. The only movies that are getting made are these gigantic movies with, the exception of a few we're going to talk about in a sec. But like we're in a weird state right now in terms of the business model for media.
Right. But then,
but what we're doing, I really believe, is the future, and it holds promise. Whereas legacy media is dying right now. Like,
no doubt.
Sort of network television programming, like all of that, like the business model is just eroding underfoot, as we speak there. And what is that going to look like in a couple of years? CBS is going to cut its slate. Like all these networks, like they can't afford to continue to underwrite the programming that they always have been underwriting, because the advertiser dollars are not there, because the eyeballs aren't there. And the eyeballs that are there are, basically geriatric.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And that's what I was getting at, is that it's, for me, someone a professional in this space that has like always, looking back, it's easier to see, but almost every story I've done has been about expanding our awareness of what this world really is and what our life is really about. Like, if you look at it, like everything from the Goggins books to some of my sports reporting to my own projects, it's like, it's all about like expanding that sphere of awareness, piercing the bubble, and see that there's so much more. And so for me to land here, it's like, I think that's where we kind of link up in that same idea. And so to be a part of this and to have, my small foothold here as part of what I'm doing, it just means a lot to me. And especially because of this audience, this audience has been incredibly affirming for me, and just a great place to share what I'm doing, and receptive in that way. And so it's like, it's been such a pleasure. And I've said it before on social media, but to be able to say it now on the podcast, how grateful I am for the audience, for the listeners here, and to be part of what you're doing. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, it's been great doing this with you, man. I love doing it.
Yeah, thanks.
It's been fun.
Thanks.
We're in the process of really looking at Substack as we get our heads around how we can use and leverage Substack for the benefit of the community. I think it's a really powerful and super cool and also very intuitive platform that we really haven't been taking advantage of. And I recently participated in this thing that Elizabeth Gilbert has on Substack. She was a guest a while back on the podcast. We still haven't published that episode, but she has a thing called Letters from Love.
Yes.
And she's developed this community of over 200,000 people. And what she's doing is encouraging her community to practice this thing that she's been practicing for a long time, which is to write a daily letter to herself from this perspective of love. Like, dear love, what would you have me learn today? As a prompt, right?
Yes.
And it's an exercise in self-love and in kind of honoring yourself and showing yourself gratitude. And she, every week, invites somebody to perform this exercise, write a letter, share that letter with her community, and kind of make a video where they read it. And she asked me to do it, and I did it the other week. And it's a confronting exercise for somebody who is challenged with the idea of self-love, which was kind of the subject of the letter that I wrote to myself and shared. But it was cool. But I think even more cool than that was to see the engagement of her community around this one idea. And it led us to thinking about what our version of that might look like, because I think the real benefit of Substack is the way in which you can cultivate community, which is something I've been thinking a lot about in the broader kind of context of podcasting itself and what I want to do with it as somebody who's been doing it for a long time, because it's changed quite a bit since I began. the humble beginnings where it was the, kind of purview of the hobbyist, where there was no business plan and it wasn't a income generating adventure, let alone like a vocation. But now things are very different.
I love the letter from love that you did. And I'm Liz, an old friend, and she's asked me to do one. And at first I thought, when I first got the instructions, I was kind of hastily read them. And I thought it was like a letter to your younger self. And then, so I thought, okay, I have an angle on that. And then when I realized what it was and I read yours, and I'm like, oh, this is much more challenging actually than I thought. And when she first approached me with it, she thinks it's such an important practice for men to do because we are less likely to be so sweet with ourselves or to even tap into that angle. Not to that we're less likely to be sweet with ourselves, but we're just less likely to even consider that lens to which to kind of filter our perspective. And so I thought I was going to do it in Alaska, like 5 or 10 minutes to go sit there and do it, but I haven't done it yet because I'm afraid of it.
Well, the whole thing is like, don't spend more than 5 minutes on it.
Right.
Nobody only spends 5 minutes on this. I probably spent like 2 hours on it.
Right. But you might have done the original thing and then played with it.
So I constantly find myself in this situation, a situation I suspect many of you can relate to, where almost every day it seems I'm being pulled in 1,000 directions. Too much to do. But I need to not just show up for it all, but show up with my best self, with clarity and with purpose. And I will lean into anything that will facilitate that in a healthy way, which is exactly what Nandaka by Peak is designed for and why it is my new favorite coffee alternative. So what is it? It is a nootropic adaptogen blend built for focus and calm energy without the crash. No low rent mycelium fillers, just 100% fruiting body mushrooms. The legit high quality stuff like lion's mane for cognitive support, reishi and chaga for your nervous system, plus ceremonial grade cacao, rich in anandamide, the bliss molecule. And right now you can get up to 20% off for life, plus a free starter kit, including a rechargeable frother and glass beaker. Head to peaklife.com/richroll to try Nandaka and feel the shift for yourself. This week, we put up a podcast with Dr. Jessica Knurick. It's Monday morning when we're recording this. This podcast that you're listening to or watching will go up on Thursday. But it's been cool to see this guest be embraced by the audience. Somewhat of a controversial conversation that we have around the state of the Make America Healthy Again movement, which I felt compelled to have with her, and I'm glad that I did, and it's been nice to see her message embraced right now. I wrote a Substack article that I published right before we started recording, with some thoughts on that conversation and kind of what's going on generally with the Make America Healthy Again movement and what is actually going on behind the scenes with those who hold power and the impact and implications of how that power is being used and leveraged, mostly in the context of deregulation in ways that are actually undermining any good faith attempt to actually make America healthy, setting aside the again part, which is debatable. But anyway, it feels good to kind of take a stand on that, understanding that it might be divisive or controversial.
As in terms of the Maha stuff, I thought in your post you mentioned Trojan horse, and I think that's like the perfect analogy because Maha was kind of brought into the fold during the campaign as a way to lock down the election, right? So it was kind of a strategic. It was never about we believed in these things. It was about we believe that this thing could help us get what we want, and it worked, right? It totally worked. And then as to your point, I don't want to belabor it, but like in your essay, which I thought was brilliant, you lay out how yes, red dye number 50 is being 40 getting cast aside, seed oils, and you mentioned all the things, but then you're like, yeah, but the Clean Water Act's being repealed, the Drinking Water Act's being repealed in certain ways, and that is going to impact us in a much greater way. And so I thought that was really well said. So I just want to reinforce that.
Yeah. What Jessica did such a brilliant job at elucidating was providing a sympathetic understanding around this groundswell of support, because it is good that we get these dyes out of our food. And it is, important to say out loud that, big pharma and big food and all these companies are have incentives that are at cross purposes with our individual health and our collective well-being. It's just that the solutions to those problems are not actually what's happening.
Right.
What's happening is massive deregulation that's giving all of these kind of quote unquote like corrupt behemoths more and more bandwidth to do as they please. And it's easier to continue for them to do as they please if every once in a while they voluntarily say, we're going to swap this for this in our ingredients, not because the government is making us, like they're volunteering it. It's not like, anybody's telling them they have to. And they get like a little more latitude to play behind the scenes in ways that people are not paying attention to as much as perhaps they should.
Right. I mean,
that's all.
All the information we're getting on how things are unhealthy is because there's a regulatory framework and because universities and institutions have had federal money to do certain kind of research. Now the federal money is going away from universities, so the research is going to be much more privatized, and so that means it's going to be in the hands of industry more and more. It is already in some respects, but it's going to be more so. And so the science, you're going to have less science to kind of be able to gauge what's healthy and what's not. So there's so many, at least that's my limited understanding of it, but that seems to be at risk, right? The ability to research what is unhealthy and what is healthy is being compromised. And then of course, the EPA is no longer going to be able to regulate pollution. You wonder when power switches back, because it always does, cycles end, cycles kind of fold in on each other, how much of this becomes the new norm, because it's so hard to get things passed now. Like, is it become the new norm? Does it? It's a good question.
One thing that history teaches us is that the more that you grant, in our case, the executive branch power, like it's hard to then, take that power back from them. So this, tripartite system where we have the three branches of government that are supposed to, operate in parity with each other is very much out of balance. Like more and more of that power has obviously been transferred over to the executive branch. And once it's there, it stays there, regardless of who's in office.
Right. So there you go. But anyway, that's one piece of it, like the Maha piece of it. And I've been following Jessica before. I didn't, when I found out she was on the pod, I was like, wow, because I've been following her on this same kind of track over the last few months. And, she's explaining it very well. Like you can understand why people are attracted to that movement. But then, like you say very well, but that's not the whole story. In these days where it's almost impossible to tell what's real and what's not, you can easily get roped into supporting something you're not supporting. The great example of that is the hunters that had to rise up and scream and yell about the big beautiful bill because the public lands that they rely on for recreation were getting sold if it went through. And to their credit Cameron Hanes.
Yeah, Cam Hanes made a big push,
huge
in raising awareness around that, and they were successful. They got that dealt with, but it took quite a bit.
It did. And,
short of the sort of Teddy Roosevelt Republicans standing up and letting their voices be heard around this, it would have sort of surreptitiously just like passed through.
Yeah, but part of it was the podcast realm came in as well. So Cam Hanes kind of tapped into that, and it just rippled, like the Teddy Roosevelt aspect, like you said. But the thing that I thought was amazing, the reason I wanted to bring that up, I know it's a little bit older news, and shout out Kyle Tierman, who also was public on this, is that Kyle, the environmentalist, also likes to hunt occasionally. And Cam, who voted Republican, Kyle did not. Kyle's a Democrat. It's one of the few times you actually see hunters and environmentalists coming together. You don't see it too much. When it comes to marine protected areas and the ocean, the commercial fishermen kind of have their take, and those political takes usually get absorbed by the recreational fishermen. No regulation, please, no more regulation. We have our waters are too overregulated. And the same thing happens often in ranching and hunting communities in regards to open space and public lands. This was the first time I can remember, and I've been involved in some ways in the environmental movement since the 90s, that these two groups came together to actually get something done like this. It's almost always they're at odds. And so I feel like that matters. I don't know if it's something we can build on or not, but I think it matters. And part of it is the intentionality behind a guy like Cameron Hanes, who cares deeply. He's deeply passionate for the earth. Now, how can we communicate with that side of the aisle and come together on other issues? Because I feel like
build from that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it is such an interesting thing because truly, at least in America, environmentalism was born out of the Republican perspective,
yes,
courtesy of Teddy Roosevelt,
yes,
who said we need to protect these lands and we need to kind of, exercise our federal power to make sure that they stay the way that they are and that they are preserved. Like, he's the original American environmentalist.
Right.
And so then, these parties shift and morph, and the tectonic plates of policy, move them in different directions, such that, environmentalism became the purview of the Democratic Party, and deregulation of the environment that of the Republican Party.
Right, exactly.
But as in all cases, when there's overreach in either of these, be it with the Republicans, allowing corporations to pollute these lands, or trying to pass a bill that's going to allow, the privatization, like building of developments, et cetera, on these lands, there's going to be a backlash. Similarly, on the left, when they get too crazy about the regulation, then there's going to be pushback. So in the middle, you have, Kyle and Cam, who are kind of like avatars,
right,
at the center, who are coming together to resolve an issue that I think we all, it was pretty much, at least, amongst the citizenry, unanimous that, like, we can't do that.
Right, exactly. So I don't want to bring up names and have people get all scream and yell, but like, it's not like our health secretary doesn't understand the link between the environment and all this stuff. He founded Waterkeeper. Waterkeeper is one of the great environmental organizations out there.
And he did a lot to clean up the Hudson and other rivers, and that organization still exists.
Right, and they're amazing.
And it's done a lot of good.
Yes.
Which makes it, all the more curious and bizarre.
Right.
Like,
Bizarre.
like the whole thing. We interrupt your programming with an important PSA. Happy gut, happy body, happy life. It's important, but to get there, you need a ritual. Mine starts right here with Seed DSO1. Because here's the thing about probiotics. Most of the products out there don't even survive your stomach acid, which is why I was intrigued by Seed, because they have this capsule-in-capsule system, which is designed to safeguard 24 probiotic strains and actually deliver them all the way to the colon with precision, where they can be released intact. Seed's DSO1 Daily Symbiotic is a 2-in-1, meaning both a probiotic and a prebiotic. But DSO1 isn't just about your gut. It's about supporting your whole body, from your immune system to your energy levels. And since starting DSO1, I actually have noticed improved digestion and steady energy. If you care about your health, you care about your longevity, you got to start with your gut. So go to seed.com/richroll and use the code richroll25 for 25% off your first month of DSO1. You just got back from Alaska.
I did.
We can talk a little bit about that. I'm now past the initial 90 days since my spinal fusion surgery.
Yes.
So we can bring you up to speed on what that's been like. Celebrated 22 years of being married, as well as my wife's birthday the other week. 3 anniversaries: my wife's birthday, our wedding, and the 3-month anniversary of my surgery.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so,
do you celebrate anniversary? Is surgery anniversary a thing?
I don't know. I'm making it a thing.
You're making it a thing.
You got to ritualize these like, goalposts.
But 90 days. So you're at 90 days. Let's go there first. The 90 days, is that like a signpost on the road to recovery usually with this kind of surgery?
It's the first kind of major signpost in that you're emerging out of the very acute phase of the healing and into a more rehabilitative phase. So to date, I haven't even started PT. That 90-day mark was my permission to no longer have to wear a back brace every single day. So I've liberated myself from that. I had an appointment the other week where they took x-rays and the surgeon looked at it and he said, everything is looking good and it's moving along and healing nicely. But still, I'm in the very early stages of the fusion aspect of it. Like these bones are only starting to, kind of grow together. And there's a long way to go before that is completely locked in. So at least I have the green light to begin PT. He told me he was going to refer me, but I haven't gotten that referral yet. So I haven't really been doing anything except what I have been doing, which is walking and taking things very gently and lightly, and still like feeling a little bit better, not as tired in the afternoons. Like I can handle a little bit more on the work front, but still fragile, still feeling, weirdly uncomfortable, still not supposed to bend or twist or lean or all those sorts of things. So yeah, it's been a massive test of patience. I know there was a lot of people out there who were enjoying the walks that I was doing.
Yes, I'm one of them.
It's like, weirdly, that was like a very popular thing, much to my surprise. And then I just completely stopped doing it.
Did you stop doing the walks?
I haven't been doing the walks as rigorously and as regularly as I was, at least in the morning in that way, because I've been using this time to advance the book project that I'm pretty immersed in right now. And my special creative time is in the morning. So I want to capture that. And so those walks and the nominal amount of exercise that I'm doing is a little bit later. But also the whole point of those is to be present to, I keep talking about like, okay, well, this is the opportunity where you're forced to like be still with yourself and to pay attention and to be present and to, lean into the lessons and the opportunity that this unique moment that I find myself in is making available to me.
Yeah.
And when I'm thinking about like, how am I capturing this to share it? I'm completely out of that experience altogether.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like, okay, should I film this? And where's a good photo? And that's all that's occupying my mind, which is fun in terms of like sharing the experience with other people, but it comes at the cost of what the whole endeavor is supposed to be about. So I kind of stopped doing that, although maybe I'll start doing it once in a while because people seem to enjoy it. But I am still making sure that I'm getting my steps in and doing my meditation and really honoring the uniqueness of this experience that has forced me to basically stop everything. And it's very uncomfortable, and it requires a tremendous amount of patience that I don't always have, but it's forcing me to practice all of these principles that I talk about all the time. Like, you can't train where you think you should be, or you feel like you used to be. You have to train where you're at. And where I'm at right now is basically like ground zero. And as much as I talk about the present moment being the place where all answers seem to reside, I nonetheless am, always looking for the escape hatch to distract myself. And just noticing that in and of itself has been interesting, and trying to bring myself back into the present moment to sit with the discomfort of not being able to do the things that make me feel like who I am, and knowing that, it's our resistance to being present, to declining distractions, that always reveals the teachable moments that are lying in wait. If we're, courageous enough to sit with that discomfort and lean into, what those lessons might be. You got to just do what you can with what you have. And when, I don't have much in terms of my physical capacity, it's definitely a sense of being limited, but also this understanding that I'm being prepared for something better. Like I can't get back to doing what I love doing unless I really am patient with the moment that I'm in right now. And I've sort of been thinking about this in the context of the caterpillar becoming the butterfly, and how Alexi Pappas says you have to, it's not like a transition from one to the other. The caterpillar has to be completely dissolved into a goo. She calls it the glop, right?
You
have to go into your glop state before you can emerge into something else and be transformed by the experience. Or Chip Conley calls it the chrysalis, right? I mean, that's what it is. It's this chrysalis.
Yeah.
And really paying attention and honoring like these transitions in life. But also my spin on it, this is my big like insight, which is that the caterpillar cannot become the butterfly unless it inhabits the mind of the tortoise first.
Okay, that's a mixed metaphor, but I like it.
I'm using many animals here, but the caterpillar can't tortoise its way to the butterfly. I mean, it can't hair its way to the butterfly. No. It has to, adopt the mindset of the tortoise and take these things slow, I guess is what I'm saying. Like slow and steady, patience, things I've always promoted, I try to live by, but now I'm kind of being forced to live at a whole entirely like new level.
Yeah.
And that conjures all these questions around identity. Like, who am I? Like, am I an athlete? Like, not right now, I'm not, a different kind of athlete, I suppose. Am I a podcaster? Am I a writer? Are you a father? Are you a husband, Adam? Like, yeah, we're all of these things, but we're also none of these things and so much more. And what happens when you kind of release your grip on this idea you have of yourself and who you think you are and how you hold yourself out to the world and how you would prefer to be perceived, and relinquish like all of your energy around that, what happens then? Like you're in this state of deeper surrender that makes space for something new, something more capacious, I suppose. So that's a little bit about this exploration that I've been on, which is cool, and it's like you were talking to me earlier about this clip that I posted or that my team posted from a podcast that I did with Mike Gervais a while back, where I was talking about these phases of life in which we find ourselves dismantled, and how it's like, congratulations, like this is your opportunity, right? Like this is where all the juice is to take the experience, learn from it, and build upon it to, emerge transformed as a consequence of that. And taking that idea and layering it on top of like where I'm at right now, instead of like resenting this situation or trying to emerge from it as quickly as possible, instead to just like allow myself to completely be in it, without resisting it. It's different, it's been a different experience. And I've got the expanded waistline to prove it. It's like my pants aren't fitting so well these days. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
Right.
How long is it going to take me at 58 to get rid of that? Probably a little bit longer than it did 15 years ago. But this is the reality that I'm in right now. But I'm excited to start the PT and have something to, sink my teeth into that will distract me.
Well, yeah. So
from the experience that I'm in right now.
Two questions. One is just, I know some of the walks you've been doing pool walks too. Is that easier? Do you find that you can go longer in the pool? Or
I can go long. Like that's not the limiter. The limiter is like, what's hard is doing less than what you feel like you're capable of doing. Right. It's like, okay, you've done enough. The idea isn't to walk a mile longer than you did the day before every single day until you're walking 30 miles. It's like, this is not what we're doing right now. No. I could do that. I want to do that, but that's missing the point. So yeah, I can walk in the pool, do the pool walking, and it's cool because you get a little bit more resistance without any kind of strain on the lower back or any of that. And I would admit to doing a little bit of swimming and kicking in the pool just to see how it feels.
All right.
Which is nice. So anyway, enough on that.
What's when you feel the urge to escape from and try to distract yourself, where do you go?
I go immediately to Netflix. No. I mean, it's kind of true. Yeah. I've watched a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Just to get your mind.
I mean, I have
it.
plenty of work to do, so
course.
I can be a workaholic in the midst of all of this, and I would plead guilty to indulging that, when you have a book deadline looming.
It's interesting what you said about the relinquishing, because I was listening to my favorite mindfulness guy, Jack Kornfield, from like some 1992 talk. And he was referencing one of his teachers, and the subject was nirvana. I'm wearing
you're wearing the Kurt shirt.
And the description of nirvana, we think of nirvana as the goal, like this enlightenment. You're a fully realized being. You have ultimate equanimity. You have reached the the spiritual Jedi phase. But in reality, there's moments of nirvana every day, and it's in the relinquishing of the grip. It's in the letting go, and that feeling you have. It's after running hard, and then you stop running, and the running high hits you. It's in that moment. It's like we all have these moments of nirvana. We just don't label it that way. And this is what these guys were saying. Buddhist scholars and people who've been pursuing this for years by that point. And I just thought that's an interesting way of putting it in like the little moments of nirvana we have in our day, because there's multiple things happening all the time. There's the big tragic comedy that we're all immersed in, and it feels very tragic a lot of times. There's the stuff we're dealing with on our own plate, which can be at turns stressful or fun or whatever. And then there's the real subtext, which is what you were saying, where all of these things. And to let go in the course of your day, maybe 10, 12 times, you have these moments in nirvana, and just to kind of focus on those and give them a little attention, I found that's a pretty cool experience. So it just made me think what you were saying.
I mean, those experiences happen before we have the mental acuity to label them, as good or bad. We do that in retrospect. Mm-hmm. And I think to the extent that we can recede into the background and inhabit a more present state of awareness, we make ourselves available for those experiences. Because it's our compulsion to rush in and slap a sticker on it and say it's this or that takes us out of the experience itself, right, and robs us of the opportunity that's available to, inhabit our lives from a more, I'm not saying like a perpetual state of nirvana, but to make ourselves available for those experiences when they arise.
Mm. Absolutely. The analysis paralysis.
Did you have these experiences or an experience like that while inhabiting the vastness of Alaska, watching grizzly bears chomp down on salmon swimming upstream?
Alaska, man. Well, Julie's homeland, mm-hmm, where she emerged, the legend that she is. Our first time in Alaska, it was I know I'll be back. I knew I was going to love it. I knew we were all going to love it. It just felt, it recalls the same feelings you have in Hawaii and the Pacific Islands. There's something about it. There's a frontier aspect. There's a cultural kind of kinship with those places. And there's actually a lot of travel between those places. It's the last frontier. And we were only there for like a week. We have a good friend of mine, Leah Barrett, who's the underwater photographer that got me into covering freediving. Lives there now with her husband, Rob, and their kids, Mako and Tiger. And so I'd never met her kids. She'd never met Zuma. And so we've been talking about how to get the families together. And finally, they just moved back there and for a job Rob got. And so we just said, hey, we're coming. Mm. And so we stayed with them in Anchorage for a few days. We did the float plane trip to Katmai National Park, where the grizzlies, that waterfall, Brooks Falls, where that famous picture of the grizzly just about to
I know chomp. You sent me that video, and I was like, oh, that's exactly like that image that I've seen. Like that actually is happening in real time in real life.
Dude, it was amazing. It was like, it's funny when you do the day trip from Anchorage, you're like, wow, you can just do a day trip and go see these animals, because it was too late. By the time we decided to do this trip, it was only a couple months ago, so it was too late to like stay the night there or get any sort of lodging in the national park. That stuff's like lottery 2 years in advance. And so we just did the day trip. But then you get there, like there was fog in the morning, so we got a little bit delayed. Then we got there, and you have to go to something called Bear School, so like a 30-minute primer from the national park to teach you what to do. Then you have to immediately eat, because otherwise you won't eat. Mm-hmm. And then you finally get on the trails. And we had about 5 hours while in the park itself. And immediately you walk out. Your whole concern is, are we going to go there, do all this money, spend all this money, take all this time, and then see no bears? Like, that's what you're worried about. Immediately you hit the trails. There's bears, there's bears everywhere, grizzly bears. And so from the first lookout, we watched some grizzly bears play. And I let, April's the photographer. I mean, she's got the gear, she's got the eye, she's got it all. She's very skilled. And so the whole thing was you go, and Zuma and I had our own little experience. And so it was fun. I was just cruising the trails with Zuma. And then finally we caught up to her because she's shooting a lot of photos. And then we hit the falls and we saw everything. We saw about 8 bears. One crossed the path like 60 feet from us or 50 feet from us, just like the trail in front of us. And so that was pretty fun. Our bear school kind of kicked in, and I picked up Zuma, and we just kind of stayed quiet and let it pass.
Are they just unperturbed by human observation?
They seem it. If you probably ask them, they'd be like, man, they're like mosquitoes, get these people out of here. But they seem fine. Like there didn't seem to be anything, and like nobody's got weapons around. They've got the Rangers have bear spray.
You have spray.
Yeah. And maybe some of them have sidearms, but for the most part, it's a very low stress, low concern thing. If the big concern is if you don't do what they advise and you just stay in the trail and the bear is right there, the bear will just lay down and won't move for 2 hours, and then nobody gets their plane and nobody leaves the park. It's a big problem.
It's a standoff.
That's the big concern. It wasn't like attack. Attack was never a concern. And also make sure the food's out of the cabins and things like the normal stuff, so that they don't just break in and associate food with people. And so that's the main thing. But with this much salmon, I mean, the river was red. I mean, with this much salmon right now, there's no concern. There's food everywhere. And so that was fun. We went down to a place called Between Beaches, which is on a spit about 4 hours south of Anchorage. Then you catch a boat to a place called McDonald's Spit in the Seldovia region. And it's like this little spit of sand and rock. And both sides, there's a beach on the lagoon side, and there's a beach on the ocean side. And it's just magnificent, like, snowy peaks and bald eagles everywhere. And it just was like magnificent.
Did you get your cold water immersion?
I did. There is freediving in Alaska, and I brought my fin and mask and my fin bag with me the whole time. Like I'm carrying, like we do not travel light. I mean, we don't travel light. We had a guitar, we had my fin bag, we had everything. And so I got in. The viz was terrible, but I'm used to bad viz. It was warmer than I thought. It was warmer than like the Oregon coast that summer I dove there. So it was like 49 degrees at depth, Fahrenheit, but it was a blast. Hung out with Alaska Freediver. There's a new shop in Seldovia. Shout out Chris and Amelia. Chris took me out and had a great time. And so it was epic. We're going to be back. And Between Beaches is a great spot. Highly recommend for people who are looking like for a remote kind of cabin on a beach in Alaska. Yeah.
I'm looking for this new goggle that Speedo recently came out with. I saw an image of it on the internet, and I'm trying to find it right now. I was going to send it to you, and I forgot, and I can't find it now, but maybe we can insert it into this video later.
I need to see it.
But the reason is that it's sort of a hybrid in between a scuba diving mask and actual goggles. It's like goggles, but it has these flanges that kind of go over your thing. And I was like, oh, this is the compromise that Skolnick and I have been looking for.
Well, you need the nose though, or you can't dive.
Yeah, it doesn't have the nose thing.
Right. So then you can't dive. It's just a goggle.
You won't even consider this, even for swimming.
Well,
even though you don't need your nose to be covered.
No, for swimming,
you're not diving.
Goggles. I have goggles.
Okay. I thought the whole thing was you insist on these masks when, you should be wearing goggles because this is the etiquette, Adam. These are the rules.
My problem is I can't swim without trying to dive. That's my problem. But yeah, no, it was a blast. It was a good time. And Leah, fished a halibut off a paddleboard, which was pretty incredible.
Wow.
So yeah, she's become a full-on Alaskan. You're picking berries, salmon berries and blueberries fresh off the bush. So, I'm boring people who've been to Alaska who know how great it is, but love it there. And we'll be back for sure.
It's been a while since I've been there. Julie grew up there. She's got crazy stories of living there being a kid
in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Latchkey situation, and her and her friends are, on a glacier with like no phone and, like
nothing.
And just, a can with a rattle in it. Yeah. And, that's basically it. And there's crevasses everywhere. And it's just like amazing,
amazing.
That like they survived. And people would die all the time.
Yeah,
like,
people did
so-and-so die. It's just like the thing that happened like all the time because nature is so uncompromising and so, gigantic.
And apparently like the beaches off Anchorage, it's like they look like sand, but it's mud flats. And so if you go down to the mud flats and try to like get in, you could get stuck there and the tide could come in and just suck you. Like it'd be like the slow death of your nightmares. And so like you see this water, it's flat and it looks amazing and inviting. And it's like, do not go there. And there's no signs or anything. Like any tourist could end up getting stuck. But apparently there are stories in the newspaper, so-and-so stuck in the mud flats.
Are you old enough to remember when we were kids and it was just all about quicksand? We would talk about quicksand
yes,
all the time.
Quicksand,
there was an obsession with quicksand and people dying in quicksand.
Yes.
And then that just went away at some point and people don't talk about that anymore.
Yeah.
But when I was 12, I can tell you.
That was your phobia?
Nationwide, there was a conversation happening amongst my peers, my age group, around quicksand.
Yes. The different ways to die. As you grow older, you learn more and more ways it could happen,
Anyway. You know what the most fun is?
What's that?
What I really want to do?
Watch Netflix?
Yeah, I want to have like a movies podcast.
Hey man,
this is like that's all I really want to talk about, Adam.
Let's do it.
All this stuff about change and transformation, it's great,
Yes, yeah. But let's talk about movies.
Yeah, like let's dismiss audience receptivity and just talk about like stuff that I think is fun to talk about.
Let's do it, man. We should.
But I think the roll-on audience now is relatively attuned to the fact that media diet has become a cornerstone.
It is a cornerstone.
This edition of the show.
All right, so are we getting into it? Are we getting into it?
What have you seen?
I've been watching the first season of Deadwood. Have you heard of that show?
I have heard of it. One of the greatest of all time.
I'm a rewatchable.
By the great David Milch.
Oh my God.
Ask anybody who is a screenwriter and they'll all pretty much agree that he's like the GOAT.
Yeah.
In terms of television writing.
Well, he was Hill Street Blues, right?
Yeah.
Hill Street Blues. And then what did he do after that?
He did Deadwood. He had that show. Didn't he do the show about horse racing for HBO?
He did.
That had Dustin Hoffman in that got canceled.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's done a lot of other stuff.
But Deadwood is, especially the first two seasons. I'm only watching the first because that's, to me, the pinnacle of it. And then I'll go back to trying to be a current person and not an old bastard. But like that show, that came on HBO right when Entourage was hitting. And so like it was a big Sunday night. 1-2 was Entourage and then Deadwood. And maybe 6 Feet Under was in that lineup. I forget. But it was like this great Murderers Row lineup. And
NYPD Blue, Deadwood, Hill Street Blues.
That's it. Yeah, NYPD Blue. Which, by the way, NYPD
True Detective
Blue,
also.
Oh, really?
The first season, I think.
Okay.
I'm looking on IMDb right now. Sorry, go ahead, though.
But NYPD Blue is considered very much groundbreaking television. And Deadwood is so Shakespearean. And it's not just the writing, but the acting is just incredible. And to watch it, it's like artistry. So I do like a Western. I do like an Old West and Wild Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane and all that. And so if you haven't seen it, you probably have seen it. But if you haven't seen it, that's what I've been watching. And then
if you love Deadwood, then maybe check out the podcast I did with Titus Welliver.
Oh, yeah.
Who's in that show, who talks about Milch in that conversation.
Oh, does he? Okay. Yeah. I mean, he comes in at the end of the first season.
I think so. It's been a while since I watched it. My boys love it. I think they recently rewatched the whole thing themselves, and they talk about it all the time.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Well, Swearingen is one of the great.
All right, so
characters.
you're staking you're planting your flag
at Deadwood.
I
watched Deadwood. I've been watching Deadwood, The Dodgers, and then I read a book. I mean, it's media diet, so books count.
Yeah,
I read
for now
James Rebank's new book, who shares an agent with you and I. A bird is his agent, called The Place of Tides. He is, I think, the best naturalist writing today. And it's one of the best nonfiction books I've read since Zaytun. I would put it on a list of, 5 or 6 top books. It's very quiet, beautiful, kind of earth-based and earth and water-based a book. And it's about, he wrote Shepherd's Life and Pastoral Song, which is, his day job is running a farm in the north of England, where he was born. His family's been farming there, ranching there for 600 years. And he basically did regenerative agriculture, brought that to bring his family farm back. And so the first 2 books are kind of about that. This one, he embeds himself with the eider-down duck ladies of the Norwegian islands. And so he spends a season with a 70-year-old woman who has brought back an age-old custom, which goes all the way back to the Vikings, which is to protect and provide shelter for eider ducks to come on land, protect them from predators, and then let them hatch their eggs, and then when they go back with their young to the ocean, they leave the down behind. And so all this idea of like down is kind of cruel. This is not that. Eider down is not that. Eider down is like they just leave it behind in their nests. And so he spends, it's this way of life that has gone obviously vastly out of fashion. Everyone's leaving the islands. The kids go to Oslo. And she has brought back, she went to islands that were all built around this economy since the Vikings, and since she was a kid, the islands were still functioning this way in a vast way, and thousands of ducks were coming, to the point when she was having a kind of her own midlife crisis. The ducks weren't there, no one was doing it, and she brought the custom back to several islands. Oh, wow. She and some others, and so he met her, and he spent a season doing that, and so that's the book, and it's remarkable.
Yeah. I'm sure the writing is beautiful.
Yeah, it's
and
poetic.
Obviously it's like
and easy to read, and just like you go on, and he has these incredible insights about kind of our humanity and what it means, and the nature of the modern world, because we're all kind of stuck. What it is we're all like kind of cogs in this modern world, and we have to detach and look around every once in a while to kind of realize that we're not that, because it can become all consuming. And I think that's really the heart of the book, is like that he is this high functioning guy running this. He's written best-selling books. He's in demand, and he wants to be in demand because it gives him somehow makes him feel validated. And being with her, he realizes actually being part of the land and sea and the wind, and she's part of everything when she's doing her thing. It makes him realize that is actually the point.
Right. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I love it. That's beautiful, man.
Hey, thanks, man.
You've gone very highbrow.
Going highbrow
this week.
Yeah. And one last thing, Eddie Palmieri, the great salsero, the great musician, Latin jazz and salsa innovator, Latin music innovator. He died at 88. He's one of the great, if you haven't, this is a media diet thing. If you haven't ever listened to Eddie Palmieri, he is an absolute maestro. He kind of was one of the first to put out like 6-8 minute songs on record. Like the record companies weren't doing it, and he did it because of the band he put together. He started playing piano at 8 years old in Washington Heights. He's a Washington Heights kid. He's a New Yorker from Puerto Rican descent, and just a master musician. And I'm not going to drone on too much, but there's an incredible obituary in the New York Times that I can give you the link if you want to add to the show notes, and just Spotify him, and I'll throw a few songs on there if you want, for people who are interested in that kind of thing. I love all kinds of music, and if you're not a big salsa or person, give it a listen, because it's funky and deep and really cool.
Nice, man.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Hey, thanks.
It made me think about a documentary that I'm excited to see that I haven't seen yet. This documentary on Jeff Buckley that's coming out soon. I love Jeff Buckley, and I'm fascinated by his life and his music, and this life that was cut short far too early. I'm not sure when the date of that is coming out. I'm starting to see previews around that.
It's a biopic or a documentary?
It's a documentary. Okay. Yeah, it's a documentary. But speaking of movies, I'm gonna pick the low-hanging fruit here. I mean, I saw Weapons this week, and it's just like amazing. This movie is fantastic.
The marketing's amazing. Looking at the posters, they freaked me out the minute I saw them.
I'm not like a huge horror guy.
Okay.
So I'm not necessarily like the prime audience for this kind of thing. Like
Right.
I like horror fine, but I'm not the guy who's like running out to see the latest, scary movie or, Friday the 13th or whatever, Blumhouse or whatever. Yeah, it's like,
Right.
It's fine, but it's not like, that's not my sweet spot at all. But I do admit to really enjoying this new trend of kind of auteur-driven horror as high art, like the Midsommars, those types
Get
of
Out.
movies that are, Get Out, things like that. Like these directors who are pushing the envelope and kind of redefining horror. And that's what obviously made me interested in Weapons, because it was clearly, if you watch the trailer, like this is in conversation with those filmmakers and those movies. But I steered away from reading anything about it or wanting to know too much about it, or even the director who created it, who has his own like really interesting story in and of itself. Like he comes from improv comedy and is like a very interesting origin story. So I suppose I went into it with a projection or an assumption about what I thought it was going to be, and it just wasn't that at all. It's sort of a movie that keeps you on its toes, because every time you feel like you have your footing and you feel like you understand the movie that you're in, it becomes a different movie. And it's almost as if he's playing with these tropes or these things that he's dropping into the frame that you're used to seeing. And you're like, oh, when I see this, it means this, or this is what's going to happen, or I can foresee how this story is going to play out. And he's constantly subverting those expectations. And it's really fun. Like it's uproariously fun, and it's funny also. It wasn't necessary. I mean, it has a, the construct of it is like a scary idea, but I wouldn't say like it scared me. It has disturbing moments for sure, but it's wildly entertaining and super fun. And I think, I checked like a day ago, it was scoring like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like people love this. And when I went to the movie theater, it was packed. And I think movies are really back in no small reason due to Sinners, 28 years later, which is also amazing.
I heard that's great.
And now this movie, like these are really well done, very crowd-pleasing movies that have brought audiences back into the theater in a moment where it's like, oh, theaters are dead and the movie-going experience is defunct. But if you make great stuff, people will come. They're coming out for this. It's great. My kids went to go see Naked Gun, which is like not that interested in seeing it, but apparently that is like really well done and they loved it and it was super fun. And it's been a long time since like a broad comedy was in theaters.
Is it
like
Zucker? Is it the Zuckers again?
I don't even know. Are they still making it? I don't know. I should know. If I'm going to host a movie podcast, I should know things like this.
Well, I'll watch these.
But
I'll watch these.
The point being, like, when was the last time there was a really broad comedy that did really well at the box office in theaters? Like
I'd have to think.
Really, like on the broadest level, like a movie like this.
Step Brothers, probably.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, right? Like they're not making these kind of movies. Probably because these movies don't do well overseas, so they don't have the global
comedy
return.
Transfer.
Yeah, so they're not making them because these things cost money and more money than they used to.
Right.
But anyway, Weapons. That's my choice. I still want to see Eddington. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
But I'm busy.
Right. We're busy.
Even though I can't move my body.
You can't move your body and I can't get out at night. So it's kind of like we're a little bit mixed. But I think Weapons is on Netflix, right? Or
Weapons is in the theaters
right now. It's in theaters only?
Yeah. It's in the theaters.
Okay. So I need to see it.
Yeah.
I need to see Weapons. How about the F1? Did you see F1?
Yeah, I saw F1.
Okay.
I loved F1. It's the cinematography is fantastic in that movie. It's something you really should see on the big screen. I don't think it's in theaters anymore, is it?
No, maybe not.
I didn't see it in IMAX. I wish I had. The story is incredibly basic, but I think it needs to be because there's so much else going on. Like the sport is so complex. And I think they did a really deft job of trying to explain it without too much exposition or leaning too much into the insane complexity of the whole thing by focusing on like tire choice and some kind of basic strategy stuff that a broad audience can understand. And it's wildly enjoyable.
Okay.
I was at the Formula One race in Austin a couple of years ago.
Right.
With the boys, and had the opportunity to be in the paddock and visit the Mercedes garage.
Ooh.
And I got to very briefly meet Lewis Hamilton and Toto, and it was a wild experience.
That was his last year being the best too, I think, right? Yeah, or was up there.
That was the year that he was starting to struggle a little bit.
Okay.
But while in the Mercedes garage, where you get you have the headphones on and you kind of hear what everyone's saying. This was like the day before the race when they were, this was during testing maybe, where the drivers are out and they're reporting back like how the car feels and what they feel needs adjusting and all that kind of stuff, which is super interesting to hear. But literally standing next to me was Brad Pitt. He was
he was already
and then
researching.
We went into each of the teams, they have their own garage, and then across the little roadway paddock, in this paddock area, they have these hospitality suites where they have it's a little cafe kind of situation. And Brad and Joseph Kaczynski, are sitting with Lewis Hamilton, and they're this is 2 years before the movie comes out. They're figuring it out, which was wild.
That is wild because Brad Pitt's character is basically Lewis Hamilton now, right? He's he's at the end, towards the end of his career, and
Brad Pitt is 60 years old.
Well, right, but that's the idea, right? No, he's not playing a 60-year-old though in the movie. No,
but he's playing in a much more. Have you seen the movie?
No.
Okay, so you're talking out your ass right now. I am too, even though I saw it. But anyway, I wouldn't draw that much of a parallel.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they were really, really careful to not over-identify the characters with any, existing drivers in an unfair way. Right. And they also did a really great job of, obviously it's immersive because they're filming this in the midst of these races going on. And so the real drivers and the real cars are part of the story, but not in a way that intrudes upon the narrative such that the real life drivers become characters necessarily.
Okay.
Which I think was a smart choice. But Joseph Kaczynski, who's an engineer by trade, he was a mechanical engineer long before he was a filmmaker. He is engineering these movies in really fantastic and unique and creative ways. They had to basically come up with all of these new cameras that separated the lenses from the bodies so that they could place them all over the cars and hide the bodies underneath the chassis so the cars would still function properly in their weight balance and aerodynamics.
Wow.
You can go down the rabbit hole on YouTube and on sort of behind the scenes and how they actually did this. And it's quite a masterstroke.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's the way George Lucas had to create new cameras. He's creating new booms and new ways of holding cameras, I would imagine, right?
And I would buy stock in Joseph Kaczynski because he sort of emerged as, one of the most prominent filmmakers when it comes to super high budget action thrillers.
Yeah.
Because he's able to do things no one's ever done before. And it's thrilling to watch them.
Well, I would agree that movies are back and TV is kind of slumped. You can't think. That's one of the reasons I'm watching the first season of Deadwood is that although we did watch The Bear, but we did watch The Bear recently. We watched the. You know what
I started rewatching in my convalescence because I wanted something that made me feel good, that was earnest.
Okay.
And so I went back to the beginning and started watching Friday Night Lights from the beginning.
Yes.
And that show holds up.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's kind of awesome.
Right. The show, not the movie, the show.
It's so earnest in a way that you don't kind of see right now in culture. Right. And I found that to be heartwarming.
Okay.
So that's it. I think that concludes Media Diet for this week.
It does.
Any parting thoughts?
Well, we should shout out some of the friends of the pod.
Yeah. Friends of the pod update.
Friends of the pod update.
Who's out there doing stuff?
Well, while we were all sleeping, David Goggins and Harvey Lewis were finishing Bigfoot 200.
Yeah.
A 200-mile race that I think is 47,000 elevation gain and loss or something incredible.
Where does it take place?
It's in the Cascades in Washington State. And
David hasn't competed in quite a while.
No, he keeps it super under the radar. I didn't know he was competing until Ben Pryor.
Shout out Ben.
Shout out Ben. Sent me a link to the tracking, and I was tracking him. And I haven't talked to him about the race or anything yet, but it was such a pleasure to watch him do it. And I knew he was towards the end. He was like picking up pace and just like he always does, and tracking people down. And I think it was like a top 20 finish, and Harvey was right there. I think Harvey finished around the same time, and so it was cool to watch both those names. Mm-hmm. And go. But it was a long one. It was like, it must be harder than Leadville. It's like it's 200 miles, but it's
twice the distance.
Twice the distance. But even Moab, I feel like was incredible too. And that's 240 miles. This seemed to be the same amount of time for less miles. So I think it's the terrain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Kate Courtney won the Leadville 100 mountain bike race in record-breaking time.
Incredible.
So shout out to her, which is cool.
Under 7 hours.
She's a machine, man. Do not get in her way. That woman is so capable. Whatever she chooses to focus on in her life, I have no doubt she will, set whatever you would consider to be a course record in whatever pursuit it is that, she decides to laser in on. She's an extraordinary person. And Tom Holland back in the Spider-Man suit, back on set. People seem very excited about this. For all the Marvel heads out there. I'm sure there's other people who have been on the show who are out doing interesting things right now.
Was there one other person that you had on mind? No, Christian Blumenfeld.
Oh, Blumenfeld. What's he up to?
He's been dominating. He's out there winning. He's winning all the races he enters, and he's just like crushing the comp because I think he had one down season where it was hard for him to get on the podium, and people wondered, is that the end of the Norwegians?
Yeah, I did a podcast with him in New York right after Kona. So 5 years ago, Christian wins gold at the Olympics. He moves into half Ironman and Ironman, becomes a dominant force in that world, and then decides that he wants to return to the Olympics in Paris to win gold again, this unprecedented thing. Well, all did not go as planned. He did not have a great performance in Paris. He went from Paris to Kona to step right back into Ironman, where he was just throwing up and blew up. So that didn't do very well. We did a podcast in New York City right after that. He kind of shared his experience and how he was going to pick up the pieces and move forward. And it seems like he's done that because now he's back and he's crushing it once again.
Yeah. He just won the Ironman 70.3 championships, and then he won Ironman Frankfurt, which was the European championships. He's won his last 3 events, gold. And he's dominated.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I think we did it for today.
I'm going to close this so I can get a better view of you.
I'll close mine too.
I feel good.
I'm going to look you right in the eye, Adam. Tell you I love you.
Oh, thanks, man.
So grateful for our time together.
I love you too.
This friendship that we have.
Me too, man. It's great. It's a great time. You know what? Cool. I appreciate your taking a stand in the health and well-being of our world, and having me along for the ride.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Let's do this again soon.
Let's do it.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Peace.
Thanks.